Evening's Planning Committee. My name is Councillor Stuart Keithley. I shall be your chair this evening. Just a little bit of housekeeping first. There's no fire alarm expected, so if we do need to leave the building, we'll do so in the bottom corner, back to reception and across the road to the car park behind the Windmill pub. This is a meeting that's live streamed and recorded, so would you please make sure you speak into your microphones so we pick up your voices effectively. Thank you for that. So I'll just introduce the top table tonight. It's on my right, Olivia Quinn from Democratic Services, and Amy Shipley. Amy's our legal advisor, myself. Joe Brooke, who is our planning manager.
Thanks, Chair. As my role as planning manager, I offer impartial advice.
Thank you very much, Joe, for clarifying that. And our presenting officers are Stuart McIver, Robert Parker Gulliford, and Leslie Adams tonight. Okay, so thank you. Members, I would just draw your attention to the update sheet as well, which is on the table as you look at your agenda. So we'll start the meeting now with apologies for absence, please, Olivia.
Chair, we have apologies from Councillor Passingham, who Councillor Parker is substituting for, and Councillor Adam.
Thank you, Olivia. And now disclosures of interest. Now, there is something that concerns us all. One of the items, item 8, which refers to the replacement of the windows in this council building, was discussed by us and approved at the council meeting on the 14th of July 2025. Now, that's a matter in principle, but because we are considering the planning issues relating to that tonight, I should like those that were at the council meeting to explain their position. Are they coming with an open mind and wish to participate, or have they already made a decision in their own minds and wish to step away? And I've been advised we need to do it individually. I was at that meeting. I come with an open mind to the planning issues, so I'm happy to continue to chair. So for those that were there, I'll just go around the table. Councillor Harvey.
Open mind, I was there, but I'm happy to deal with any application based on its merits.
Thank you. Councillor Padgham.
I wasn't at the meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Ballinger.
Yes, I come with an open mind, and furthermore, just to clarify, I seconded the grant. However, I do come with an open mind.
Thank you, Councillor Parry.
Good evening, Chair.
Thank you.
I did attend the full council meeting in July. It was not the issues that were raised were not planning, and therefore I do come with an open mind for this evening's committee.
Thank you very much, Councillor Parry. Councillor Harding.
Yes, I was not present at the meeting, but I come with an open mind.
Thank you. Councillor Hencher-Seraphin.
Thank you, Chair. I come here with an open mind on this application.
Thank you. Councillor Parker.
Yes, I too attended, but come with an open mind.
Councillor Scorer.
Thank you, Chair. I was at the meeting, but I do come with a clear and open mind.
Councillor Eden.
Likewise, Chair, I was at the meeting and come with an open mind.
And last but not least, Councillor Fleming.
Yes, I was also at the meeting, but I come with a clear and open mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, you recorded that, Amy. There is another item that is worth raising on our agenda, item number 5. That's the application 25000914 LBC at Combrook. There had been an email from the applicant, so I'm guessing that most members have received that, so we can say that we've received that and declared that we received it. Thank you very much. Okay, so next item on the agenda is just to confirm and...
Chair.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Parry.
I'm very sorry. I wish to declare an interest with regard to application reference 23/01891/FUL, which is land to the west and east Wellesbourne Junior School Annex. I am the former ward member for Wellesbourne East before the boundaries were changed, and I have attended a neighbouring property in the past over the last 10 years to witness the extent of some flooding on the adjacent field, which is the application site. However, what we have in front of us is a completely new planning application, and I therefore come with an open mind.
Thank you, Councillor Parry. And I'm guessing there might be one or two other disclosures. Councillor Harding.
Yes, application 25/01544 full. I am the ward member. I made no representations, and I come with an open mind.
Okay, anybody else? No, thank you very much. So moving on to item 3 on the agenda, it's the minutes of the previous meeting, which held on the 24th of September 2025. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chairman. I note that in accordance or inconsistent with normal practice, the apologies that were offered at that meeting were not recorded. Is that an omission deliberate or otherwise?
That's a good question. Olivia.
So due to that meeting with the notifications, we did have to get some apologies, but we're not noting them as apologies because it's not the members' fault.
Well, the members would, I mean, the meeting was held, wasn't it? So I'm not sure why we shouldn't note the apologies. Perhaps we should.
Yes, but the monitor can take that back to the monitoring officer and note that.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Olivia. Good question, Councillor Harvey. It's one of the shortest meetings I think we ever had, actually, that one. Can I take it that you approve the minutes by a quick show of hands? Thank you very much. Okay, so we move on to the planning applications for this evening. And the first is application 23-01891 FUL. That's land to the west and east of Wellesbourne Junior School, Annex, it says on here. And the presenting officer is Stuart McIver. So, Stuart, over to you if you'd like to take us through the application, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So, the proposal before members is a full application for car parking and sports pitch on land at Newbold Road, Wellesbourne. So, you can see the application site denoted by the black dot here, situated to the north-east of the settlement. Again, you can see the application site outlined in red here. And then we've got an aerial image just showing the application site as it is existing. And then we go into the proposed site layout. So you can see the proposed access from Newbold Road here, which would lead into the proposed car parking area. And then around to the other side of the school, you've got the proposed sports pitch. And then we just move on to a proposed landscape plan, just showing a few details in terms of sort of tree planting and some materials, porous paving for the proposed car parking. And then we move on to some flood mapping. So where the proposed car park and proposed access to the car park, that will be in flood zone 3P. And then you've got where the sports pitch is, that's flood zone 1. And then we just move on to some site photos. So you've got a map and arrow to the right-hand side of the image, just showing where the photos are taken from. So this one is taken from Newbold Road, looking east across the application site, as you can see here. And then we've got another one taken from Newbold Road, looking northeast. So the proposed access will be roughly here. And then we've got another one again taken from Newbold Road, but this is now looking south, so the application site is here. And then we've got another one from Newbold Road. So this is looking, again, it's kind of looking southeast. Again, you've got the application site here. And then we've just got one from Mountford Close. So this is looking north towards where the sports pitch would be located. So it would just be, I mean, you can see this is just to illustrate that it's fairly kind of screened from Mountford Close, but you could potentially get some views between the housing. So in summary, it's considered that the application for car parking and sports pitch at land at Newbold Road, Wellesbourne, is unacceptable as it does not comply with the relevant policies of the core strategy. It is therefore recommended that the application is refused. Please see the update sheet for updates. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Right, we have some speakers on this item. And the first speaker is registered is it Mark Willows? Who's hello, Mr. Willows, hello. Who's going to tell us about his reasons for objection. So, Mr. Willows, if you'd like to come up, please, to the table, and if you could just get yourself comfortable, and if you press the right hand of those two silver buttons, with a bit of luck, yeah.
Okay.
Just come on. Now we've got quite a busy evening, Mr. Willows. So I'm going to ask you if you could hold it to 3 minutes. So 30 seconds before the 3 minutes, I shall give you a little reminder. Okay. So when you're ready, just start when you're ready. Thank you.
Good evening, councillors. As you'll be aware, there have been many local objections to this proposal, and the Planning Officer's report clearly identifies areas which are contrary to local and national planning policy. I would like to highlight the issues which are particularly concerning to local residents. The site for the proposed car park is a functional floodplain and has flooded 3 times between 2024 and 2025. The Environment Agency have repeatedly objected to the proposal on flooding grounds, and the Planning Officer has stated that the development contravenes core strategy. Residents close to the development have experienced flooding of their own properties and are very concerned that the development will increase the risk of this reoccurring due to the runoff from tarmac access roads and the need to raise the access road to meet the level of the highway. WCC Highways have objected to the proposal because it is likely to increase congestion, does not promote sustainable transport, and is therefore contrary to local planning policy. Local knowledge suggests that cars turning in and out of the car park would cause traffic to back up along Newbold Road and block surrounding feeder roads, causing gridlock at peak times and road safety issues. The Planning Officer's report also identifies that the proposal would result in the loss of Grade 2 agricultural land and that the car park would adversely affect the landscape. Both of these issues contravene local planning policies. The proposed site is an important green space which is used on a daily basis and is frequented by walkers, dog owners, model aeroplane enthusiasts and children playing. The physical, social and mental health benefits of this type of amenity are well documented, and were this application to go ahead, this would be a significant loss to the local community. The car park has been promoted on the basis of providing relief to the residents of Mountford Close by reducing school traffic. However, for many, any benefits are far outweighed by the risk of flooding, loss of green space, and the potential noise and disruption from the sports pitch. And this is evidenced by the number of objections from residents of Mountford Close. Efforts to reduce school traffic should concentrate on sustainable schemes such as the Wellesbourne bicycle bus.
30 seconds.
The school has also trialled a park and stride scheme in which pupils walk from the Village Hall car park to the school. With proper supervision, this could be configured as a drop-off scheme, so there would be no requirement for a large number of car parking spaces. In summary, I urge the committee to vote in line with the Planning Officer's recommendation and reject this application.
Thank you very much, Mr. Willows. Now, members, you've got an opportunity to ask questions of Mr. Willows' presentation or explanations. So would anybody like to start? That's Councillor Parry, please.
Good evening to you.
Good evening.
Obviously, from your presentation, you have been raising your concerns about the car parking and the traffic issues. Do what are your views about the sports pitch proposals?
Well, the sports pitch would also affect the green space. And from my point of view, and from many others, that is a big loss. It is widely used. It is somewhat unique in the Wellesbourne area in that for dog, I'm not a dog owner, but for dog owners, it's popular with dog owners because they can release their dogs and they can run free. It's used by many other people. I think it's an important green space. So there's also an issue. People on Mountford Close who back onto that area are concerned about the noise and disruption. So yes, we feel that the sports pitch as well is a significant loss.
Thank you. Any further questions? There's a couple over here. Councillor Padgham first, please.
Thank you again. Could you just explain a bit more about the flooding? You said it flooded 3 times.
It flooded 3 times in 2024. It does. I live on Mountford Close. It frequently floods. One of the people who's attended this evening has done more work on that because his house. One of my friends here might want to say more because he's done more work on that, and his house has been badly affected by that flooding. And it is as well as the issue of using land which floods badly, and the wisdom of that, it is a concern for people whose houses could be more at risk. And that's, as I said, is partly because although the area is permeable, there are access roads which are presumably not permeable, but also there's the need to raise the level of the access roads in order to meet the highway. So we've got a situation where we know there's flooding. It frequently floods. Some people are seeing that in their houses, and we are worried that the disturbance will only make matters worse. So that's a significant concern.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Harvey, please.
Thank you very much. Mr. Willows, I just want to raise the question of access to this site. My map doesn't show that there is a public right-of-way, but you may know better. So on the assumption that there is no public right-of-way, I presume that access is currently on an informal basis.
That's an interesting question, actually. As I understand it, and I'm not an expert, there are 2 gated entrances which are currently locked. Personally, I think it's interesting that the site is still very well used, even though those people have to essentially climb over those gates. So I think that just indicates the level of the desire to use it, really. But there is also an open access via a field at the rear. So there is an area that is not that is open and people frequently use. And I believe, and I'm not definite on this. I believe that there is a public right of way through that access.
Okay, there was no intent to try and trick you up in that question.
No, sure.
At all. I'm just want to understand that if I'm a dog walker now, I can use the field and walk my dog. If it's
people certainly do, yes.
And if it's turned into a car park and a football pitch, I presume that the question was, would the access change? Would I still be able to walk my dog across a car park and a football pitch if I wanted to do that?
Well, yes, but I would imagine it would be a much less desirable place to walk your dog.
It's just a question of the access on my assessment from what you said is a neutral issue. It exists in one form or other now, and it would exist.
Yes. You can currently obtain access to the field, and you would be able to obtain access clearly to the car park and sports pitch.
Right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Willows. Any further questions? Don't think so. In which case, thank you very much for your contributions.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next speakers are Martin Walker from Welland Limited, the agent, and Anne Pryor from Wellesbourne and Walton Parish Council. So if you could come up to the desk, that's Mr. Walker and Mrs. Pryor, I'm assuming.
Councillor Pryor.
Councillor Pryor, thank you. Now you had 3 minutes, which is to be shared between you. So have you decided what you're going to do about those 3 minutes?
I'm going to start and then Martin's going to...
Okay, all right. So I'll keep the clock again and I'll give you 3 minutes, a 30-second warning as you approach.
Thank you.
We're trying not to interrupt your flow. Okay, so when you're ready, if you'd like to start, when you're ready.
Okay, good evening. I'd like to correct something. There is no public right of way across this land. The Parish Council spent much time and money pursuing this application. Very hard with liaising with residents to ascertain the need and responded to comments made by the planning officer and other agencies. We've worked extensively with the school over the last 10 years on their Walk to School initiative, the Park and Ride development, and have financially supported and championed the bicycle bus. The nature of the development in the village has meant that many children have a 2-mile walk to the school, meaning that transport is essential. I have, for the last 17 years, been one of the carers taking my grandchildren to school. We cannot walk the full distance, but must drive to the village car park and walk from there. However, today, like many other days, I couldn't find a space, and I had to park on a road, which obviously affects those other residential areas. The parking problems we have manifest themselves on Newbold Road, Mountford Close, and all the surrounding roads, and includes roads in the centre of the village. This development will address the matter of drop-off and pick-up for those who must drive to school. It will also provide parking for the sporting activities that will take place on the remainder of the field. If you decide to support the refusal, what are you going to do to relieve the pressure we have in the village, especially in light of a potential further 300 houses being brought forward for building? I would ask that you grant this application.
I'm Martin Walker. I'm a chartered civil engineer with more
Oh, Mr. Walker, would you mind just pressing your button so that I can pick up your microphone? Thank you.
Sorry, I'm Martin Walker. I'm a chartered civil engineer with more than 40 years of experience. I'll limit myself to the material points. Until 2019, car parks were considered to be water compatible. They are now in the lowest risk category of less vulnerable, just to prevent totally inappropriate car parks. The gravel surface and the very small area of tarmac adjacent to the road in permeable paving, together with absolutely no raising of levels, will ensure that the flood risk is absolutely not increased. Car parking during flooding, which also affects the surrounding roads where people currently parked, will be prevented by not opening the normally locked car park when there is flooding, or evacuating the car park, which can be done in a few minutes due to the locality of the school. Flooding will never be dangerous at a depth of around 1 to 2 feet with modest flow rates. Cherwell Council recently adopted a similar system of management for a car park for their staff in a basement under a shopping centre. The flood assessment and management plan is fully supported by the flood report. You have heard the view of the elected parish council for the long-established need to provide car parking, which has been ignored by the highway authority's objection in principle. The parish council are agreeable to the usual condition for a road safety audit after the principle of consent is agreed. The land is used only for silage, as it is frequently waterlogged. It's not high-grade land, and there is a negligible effect on the landscape due to the hedge on the northern boundary, which I'll show you. I don't know if you can see these. This is the site you saw from Stuart's photographs earlier. It's just not visible along the northern boundary and the road.
If you could just bring it to an end now, please.
Siting the car park significantly further to the north, as the planning officer suggested, sequential test would be far more intrusive to the landscape. And the roadside adjacent to the car park has already been urbanised by the presence of a chicane and the associated signage. Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Councillor Pryor and Mr. Walker. Members, questions, points of clarification. Councillor Parry, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Councillor Pryor. I note in the committee's report it is highlighted there's been insufficient quantitative evidence submitted to demonstrate how the proposed car park would result in less traffic using or parking. What sort of brief or what sort of response did the parish council make in this respect to the highways? Because obviously I know from, you know, you've been working for a long time on this planning application, and I'm also interested to know whether, if you know, a highways officer visited the application site during peak time when the school was drop-off and collection as well.
Oh, right.
Okay, I think Mr. Walker's microphone's still on, you see,
right,
so
is
if you
that
could
what's
turn...
waiting
Yes,
for?
that's right. We can only have so many. Thanks.
I personally have had a number of meetings with highways on the site to talk about what we were looking to do. I've also had meetings with highways and the school to talk about what we're looking to do, because the school is very supportive of what we want to do. The response that we've had from highways when we've been discussing this with them is that actually they are focused on active travel and they don't want to put a car park in. We've had the same discussion when talking about Park and Stride, because there are actually in the village only 56 parking spaces available for anybody driving into the village, which means that everybody's thrown out onto the roads. And when I had this discussion with highways then about that, I was told, well, that was quite sufficient for any scheme we might want to do. Every turn we've taken with highways has been negative. They've not been prepared to have any constructive discussion really about what we want to do. And as I say, the overriding response we get from them is our focus in Warwickshire is on active travel. We do not want people travelling by car. And although the school has given us documentation, which we have given to highways, showing the spread of children who are linked to the school, and a large number of them are travelling up to 2 miles to school from our furthest buildings. All the building in Wellesbourne has been to the south of the river, which is the furthest away from the school. And we've had that data, the highways have had that data, but it has not influenced their response to us. Does that answer your question?
Okay, Councillor Parry. Thank you very much, Councillor Pryor. Councillor Harvey was next.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Pryor, can I pursue this question of access? You made the point right at the beginning of your comments that there is no public right-of-way, but I presume that local residents, whether there's a right-of-way or not, do make use of it, based on the information we were given earlier. Is that correct?
That is correct. There is no right-of-way across this field. The right-of-way is in the next field across. It's not within the field that we have. The field is actually locked, and there is supposed to be no access for residents, although we recognise that they do hop over the gate, and actually have damaged our gate on more than one occasion. We've had to have running repairs done on it. But they do use it, that's true. We're unable to man that, obviously, and enforce it. It's not possible.
So am I right in thinking that your intention, if this was to be granted, that the gate would be locked from time to time in order to control access? Is that correct? The gate
would be locked in the evenings when there was no use for it. It's a pick up and drop off point for the school and also for the sporting activities. So when those are not in use, the gates would be locked.
Okay.
We have an arrangement with the school and they would manage it for us.
Okay, can I pursue that? Because you raised the question of
Yes.
capacity. In preparation for this meeting, I used to be before boundaries were changed, I used to be the member representing Shipston North, which included the centre of Shipston. Just out of interest, I went down to Shipston and counted the car parking spaces. The main car park is, arguably in the middle, is Telegraph Street, which has a capacity of 56 cars. The second site is a bit further out, Mill Lane, that has capacity for 61 places. On the assumption that this is going to be a drop-off car park, how did you get to the need for 82 spaces?
Well, that's a figure that was put in because we saw that as being a maximum. We don't see that as being what we would put in initially. It was to really cover us in the planning application so we didn't have to come back if we needed them. We don't know how many spaces ultimately we would need, but we would put fewer than that in at first.
But you are asking for consent for up to 82 spaces?
We are.
Thank you for that. I think Councillor Harding was next, and then I've got Councillor Scorer, and then I've got Councillor Fleming in my list. Thank you.
That was pretty much the question I was going to ask, actually. But I noted you said there are 56 spaces in the village, so clearly there is pressure for parking off-street. And I was going to ask how you're going to ensure it's a drop-off and pick-up zone only. Are cars going to be locked in there if they park?
There are only limited spaces in the village. Actually, the parish council did pay for the one car park we have in the village. That was something that we did a number of years ago because there was no decent parking. In terms of this area, how are we going to manage it? Yes, there may be cars there at the end of the day, but we're looking at it mostly being used for parents dropping off and picking up. If some residents come and use it for other reasons, and I can't see they would, it's quite a walk from there really to the centre of the village, then they might find themselves locked in the same way as in the leisure centre that the parish council also owns and runs. Occasionally residents get locked in at night when they don't leave, when they know the gates are going to be shut.
Thank you very much. I think I had Councillor Scorer next.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Pryor, could you tell me, has there been an increase at the school in the last sort of 10, 15 years of students? And do you know the figure?
Yes, there has been an increase. I don't know the exact figures, but originally the site was only in Mountford Close in the middle and they had to build an annex. They are full currently. They are at capacity. They're a 2-form entry with a nursery and a reception area. So they're a 2-form entry and they are full. The village itself, the population has increased in the last few years and we've had nearly 1,000 houses built. From when I first was going 17 years ago to take my grandchildren there, we've had that many houses built with the appropriate number of children that come with it. So although I don't have the actual figures, what I do know is the school is bursting at the seams and will continue to do so. Children are not able to get places in the village school at the moment.
Councillor Fleming.
Does, excuse me, does the school have any other sports facility, sports field, apart from what you've actually applied for in this application?
The school has fairly extensive area of grass at the back. Yes, it does, but that is solely for school use. This green field will also be used for the use of our sporting activities. We have in Wellesbourne a group called Wellesbourne Wanderers who currently have over 400 young people between the age of 4 and 17 playing football with them, and we don't have the spaces. We only have 2 football pitches and we have a mugger. That's all we have. And it's been identified in your core strategy and in our neighbourhood plan that we have a huge deficit in playing areas. Right. And this is one way we're trying to alleviate it, because we have looked for land to purchase as a parish council, but actually we can't find any at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Can I just add one other question, please? Yeah, I think your colleague said the car park is going to be a permeable surface. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Members, are there any further questions? If not, I do have one before you leave, Councillor Pryor, if that's okay. You said in your presentation that the parish council had engaged with local residents and you've been looking for this opportunity to provide this parking for some considerable time. Given that you've engaged, I'm just puzzled to understand why do you feel there are so many letters of objection against this proposal and so few letters of support? I'm just interested to know what sort of outcomes you had from your engagement.
The outcomes that we had when we did our engagement was that residents wanted more sporting facilities and they needed parking for the school. I would suggest to you that in any issue of planning, the most comments that come are negative comments. And we have a lot of people who are in support of this who didn't bother responding because they don't think they need to. I think that's always the way with planning applications, you always get more. We have We have discussed this at council on numerous occasions, and we have had residents present at that, and they've all been in support of it. We've had numerous residents as well from Mountford Close who've come and supported it. We are disappointed as a parish council that despite that support and despite the consultation they've done, they didn't really bother to reply to the planning application. And that for us is a huge disappointment, given the time and energy we've put into it and the time we have given them to put into it in discussion with us. It is disappointing.
Okay, well, thank you for that. It does explain something to me. Councillor Parry, is that a follow-up to my question, or have you thought of something else?
Chair, it's kind of a follow-up,
Okay.
but it is on the parking issue. I wonder if you can advise how often residents who come to your parish council raise concerns about the traffic going to the school, and in particular Mountford Close.
We have in the council, we have the full council meeting, we have a community facilities committee meeting and a highways committee as well. And we have had over the last 5 or 6 years at each of those meetings, every time we have them, somebody talking about the traffic in Mountford Close and the traffic around the school. If you care to look at our minutes, any of you, you will see it in our minutes of our meetings over numerous years. Is a constant refrain of concern about the traffic, the dangers on Newbold Road, which are increasing because Newbold Road is a nightmare going morning and evening, and the need for something else, which is why the parish council initially started this move to do this. And also as well, we took this land on a long lease from one of our local landowners to allow us to do it with their support.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pryor. It is indeed disappointing, given all these comments about traffic, that when it came to the crunch, that people weren't prepared to support your scheme in any great numbers. But thank you very much for your presentations. It's helped us understand your application. Thank you for your time. Now, we have final speakers, Councillor Johnston. Good evening, Councillor Johnston.
Good evening, Chair and members.
Thank you. Councillor Johnston, I've got you down for 5 minutes, and I think you're speaking in favour of the application.
I entered my support for the application when it was first submitted, yes.
Right, okay, super. So I'll just 5 minutes, whenever you want to start.
Fine, thank you, Chair. Access for school traffic is a major issue in Wellesbourne. This reflects the lack of infrastructure arising from the development, in particular, of the 3 large estates south of the river. Anyone seeking to use active travel has no choice but to use the narrow pavements in Bridge Street close to moving traffic. And I would suggest it's certainly a place where people will be quite frightened of travelling. I'm staggered by the County Council response that the need was not justified. Other branches of the County Council are having conversations with the school to improve active travel to the school and to reduce the need for parking. So clearly there are parts of the County Council who see there is a need to do something about the parking in Mountford Close and particularly in Newbold Road, where certainly people living on the west side of Newbold Road are concerned about trying to leave their side of the estate when there are cars parked on the pavement, higgledy-piggledy, in Newbold Road. Because the distances and the nature of the built environment, as I've said, opportunities for active travel at the present are limited, and as the Chair of the Parish Council has said, the Parish Council has supported the bicycle bus financially and facilitated conversations about highways improvements. I've been aware of this proposal in general terms since I joined the Parish Council in 2004. This is the only piece of land that's available that's not built on or a road which is available close to the school. I agree with the point that has been made at the parish council that there is no point in spending more money on this proposal without some certainty that the land can be used for this purpose. Fundamentally, it's not the responsibility of the parish council to deal with the traffic issues associated with the school. They rest with the county council. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Councillor Johnson. Right, members, do you have some questions for Councillor Johnson, please? Councillor Parry, I think, should go first.
Thank you and good evening, Councillor Johnson. In your presentation, you've obviously highlighted the issues with engaging with highways, and if those were able to be overcome, what you haven't talked about or raised any concerns that you may have regarding the flood issues, and obviously the local flood, the lead flood association, they are raising an objection. Do you think within the scheme there are opportunities to overcome the risk to neighbouring properties and in relation to the local flood authority, because they are objecting? I'd just be interested to hear your views with regard to the flooding issues.
My view is that the flood risk can be managed. It will cost, but I think there are processes in place that would ensure that the flood risk was not increased. I think given the nature of the activity, pick up and drop down, there will be times when the field floods and it will not be possible to use it. We'll have to go back to plan A. But this, most of the time, the field is not flooded, and I think could be used for this purpose, subject to the necessary flood management regime put in place.
Councillor Parry, do you have a follow-up question to that on the same topic?
I do, Chair, if I may. So, in principle, your support for this is based on conditions that would ensure and minimise the risk from a flooding perspective to the neighbouring properties?
It would be certainly, I think, useful to have conditions that would cover that. And the other issue is the highway access. I think a fair amount of civil engineering would be required to make this work. And I've no idea what the cost of that will be, but I think it would improve highway safety significantly.
Thank you. Councillor Parker, I believe you had a question.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Johnston, could you indicate to us, perhaps using the map up there, or perhaps the officer could bring up a more appropriate map, but I'm trying to work out which houses are flooding and to its extent. I mean, can we see on that map, for example, that it is just that corner? When I say just, I'm going to withdraw the word just. I think is inappropriate when we talk about flooding, but it is the houses that are under the blue. Are they the ones that flood, or is in reality?
I could do with a pointer, and I'll try and describe it. I think it's part of Mountford Close where the red dot is now. And I'm not recognising the shape.
Could we move to another map, perhaps? I think.
Stuart, could you just point on there for us the access, the new access location? That's it there.
Yes, it'll be Mountford Close, isn't it? And some houses on Newbold Road, I think.
Could you give us an indication of just how many houses? Are we talking about 2 or 3 or 200?
I make it about 20 or 30 on a rough count there.
Okay.
Sorry, 20 or 30 on a rough count there.
Councillor Parker, are you happy with that clarification?
Yeah, no, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So, any further questions? There is a question from me, Councillor Johnston, if you don't mind, a lingering question about, you mentioned the car parking problems, clearly been going on for some time. Higgledy-piggledy, you described them as, parking on curbs and such like, presumably at the start in the morning, peak time drop-off and collections later on. Can you just help us understand how many roads are affected by this, and are they all residential roads, is what I want to understand. It's a common problem outside of many schools.
The road is primarily Mountford Close, and that's entirely residential. Newbold Road in this area I would describe as residential, though it is a B road and one of the major routes between Wellesbourne and Leamington Spa, so it will be used by commuter traffic and business traffic as well.
Sorry, I was a bit puzzled by that. Stuart was just indicating to us Mountfield Road, which is that Mountfield
Close is where the red dot is at the moment.
Yeah,
and
and that's where people come to... If we go further
left, those houses where the red dot now is are on Newbold Road. Yeah.
Are you, so you're saying people are parking there to then walk back to school?
Where the road bends slightly, that's part of the problem. People are parking at the entrance to Mountford Close on Newbold Road. And vehicles exiting Newbold Place, which is the estate on the other side, are the people who find their visibility is obstructed and they're almost turning face on into the oncoming traffic.
Thank you. I'll pick that up with the case officer in a minute. Councillor Parker.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Sorry to come back again. So with the car parking, which has been raised a few times, it is, and forgive me for not having my head all around this, how much of this is the primary school and how much of this is the annex?
I don't think there's any difference.
So are people going to the primary school going to potentially use this car park?
The only access to the school, both the annex and the main school, is off Mountford Close.
Right, but all I'm trying to work out is anyone attending either the primary school or the primary school annex are all going to be using this car park. Thank you.
The intention, there is a gateway. You can see there's a sort of strip of road coming south on the picture.
Yes, yeah.
That'll be the access from the field into the annex and into the main school.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Any further questions? Councillor Harding.
Just on the scale of this, 82 spaces for a drop-off zone seems excessive. Where do the staff at the school park at the moment, and what's to stop them parking in there all day and taking up spaces?
It's not my application, Councillor Harding. I don't think I would necessarily put this number of spaces in. And I would have focused it on the pick-up and drop-down, which I think is the bit that's required.
Okay, thank you for that. Further questions? No. If not, Councillor Johnston, thank you very much indeed for your presentation and helping us understand this application. Right, members, now's the opportunity to ask for points of clarification from the planning officers. So we'll start with Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got three. I recall an application in my ward which came to committee. Committee was relatively happy to approve it, except that there was an objection from the Highways Authority, and that was sufficient to refuse the application because councillors on the panel at the time decided that they wouldn't prepare to accept the risk transfer if they had granted an application against the wishes or in the face of the objection from the Highway Authority. Here we have an application to which there is an objection from the Highway Authority. What is the insurance position if the committee were minded to grant this application.
Joe?
It's not straightforward in all honesty. So you would be granting permission, obviously, against the Highways Authority in respect they have also requested a road safety audit. There has been rare instances where there has been an accident on the road, and if it was demonstrated the accident was caused because of the development, then liability can, and that's why it's not straightforward because it goes through the courts and civil matters and so forth, can fall back on the council because you have gone against the technical experts, in this case county council, but it isn't straightforward.
Thank you. Second question, this application involves grade 2 land, agricultural land. Is it a matter of principle that officers take the view that grade 2 agricultural land should not be developed, or are there circumstances where they might recommend development on grade 2 land?
So with regard to the principal aspect, obviously it's set out in the report. Policy AS10 does seek to avoid the loss of large areas of higher quality agricultural land. It doesn't give a numerical specification of what is considered large areas. However, the NDP is less permissive as it doesn't refer to scale and states that agricultural land should not be lost. So it is a question of principle. There is an element of assessment on the officer's behalf, but it does come down to being an element that is a principle of development.
Sorry, Councillor, I'll just add quickly, because you raised can you, it is, Stuart's absolutely right in everything he said. The only thing is you obviously can weigh in any benefits against the loss of the agricultural land. So it is very possible to build on agricultural land as long as you think the benefits outweigh the negatives.
That's helpful.
Did you have a further question?
And my third question is clearly with an objection from both the lead local flood authority and the Environment Agency on the grounds of Category 3 flooding risk to this particular site. Are there circumstances in which an applicant could put forward a proposal such as this with flood amelioration proposals which could work? In other words, is the grade 3 flooding risk solvable in some way or another? Is it possible to do it?
It's possible, because in all honesty, there is places on Shamaz around the country that you could easily find where it has been done. And it is possible that conditions can be put on for it. What I would emphasise is the Environment Agency have basically said it shouldn't be done in these areas because the risk is quite substantial. So once again, if you think the benefits outweigh them risks, you are well within your right to justify that, but you have to be mindful that is from the Environment Agency stating that, and also from the LLFA. Basically, when an application is submitted, it should demonstrate is it achievable and deliverable. The LLFA has so far requested a lot of additional information to see if that is possible. So it is, if you were mindful to put conditions on drainage, there is a possibility you're putting on conditions that can never be achieved because you're never going to remove the LLFA objection. That is the main reason why Stuart has called this into committee.
Thank you very much. Okay. Councillor Scory, you have a question.
Thank you. It was similar to Councillor Harvey's second question, just about the grade 2 land. Obviously, nobody likes to see grade 2 being lost. However, this is around the area. It's a lot of grade 2, a lot of cereal crops. This bit of land is just used for low-level forage. How much weight should we give that? Obviously, it's not being farmed extensively. And with the loss of grade 2, obviously the area, you clarified a little bit of that. But as a committee member, you sort of alluded that we could, if in our view, that if the benefits outweigh the negatives, that would be okay?
I'll be honest, we can't suggest what weight to give to you because it's your decision. At the minute, Stuart has highlighted that it's agricultural grade 2 land which weighs against the principle of development. So that is Stuart's opinion. If you deem that that is limited weight, if you deem it's neutral, then that's so far for the decision maker, and case law dictates that. You've just got to be reasonable in your conclusion. So if you deem that's only limited weight for the reasons you have stated, but the significant benefits of offering it to the school and the football pitch, then you're reasonable in your conclusion. But we couldn't suggest to committee significant, moderate, limited. That is for committee members to decide.
Thank you very much, Joe. Councillor Fleming.
Thank you. Has it been recorded? I mean, the previous speakers talked about it being flooded on 3 occasions at the tail end of 2024. Has it been recorded how many days it actually was flooded and would be unusable, given if we were to allow this application?
We haven't got that information in front of us in terms of how many days it was flooded.
Right. And one other quick one, please.
Yes, follow up. Yep.
In terms of the highways objections, would we be in a situation where we could set a condition to say, subject to the highways audit, then we would go with it? But obviously, if the highways audit is maintained, then we wouldn't. That's all.
I would advise against it. I'll set out the reasons why. It's a bit like what I've discussed with the drainage situation. You could technically be putting on the condition that is not achievable. The reason that highways are requesting the road safety audit is to demonstrate that the access and use of it is usable for that area for safety purposes, obviously. However, I would recommend more go on the lines, if you are mindful to grant, that you do subject to consultation and approval within 6 months of the RSA from the date of the submission. Obviously worded better than that, but that's basically it. So for it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Parry, please.
Thank you, Chair. If I could ask Stuart as the case officer, in your appraisal of this application, did you visit the site during school drop-off or collection times to get a full appreciation of the application that's in front of us?
No, when I visited the site, it wasn't during school drop-off and visitation times.
Any further questions? Councillor Harvey.
Question, I suspect, for Mr. Brooks. You mentioned twice potentially committee asking for conditions which are perhaps impossible to fulfil. Does that meet the tests of what a reasonable condition is?
You like asking the difficult questions, Councillor. In essence, it depends how it's worded. There's case law that does dictate that a condition can still be put on if it is deemed difficult. The concern I would have at this moment in time, because when you're doing those conditions, because of the 6th test, is that there's got to be a reasonable prospect that they can be achieved. Once again, at the minute you have objections, and fundamentally from the LFA in this instance regarding drainage, for further information. So committee would have to be satisfied that even though it might be difficult to achieve, it is achievable. Then yes, in essence, as long as it was closely worded and correctly done, you could put it on, but there is risk.
Can I just clarify with you, Joe, please? So that risk is that if a decision was made by this committee to grant, with a condition in that respect, either flooding or highways, that it might be that we couldn't insist upon that condition being adhered to. Is that what you're saying?
It's not so much it being adhered to, it's the fact that you're putting on conditions that we're not satisfied could ever be achieved. You shouldn't be, for obvious reasons, and there is case law again on this, you shouldn't be putting on conditions that can never be achieved. Otherwise, let's be honest, you could do it for every type of development. The purposes of a plan application is to make sure it can be achieved. Like I said, it can be difficult, but it must be achievable. If it's not achievable and you're putting them conditions on, then it wouldn't meet the 6 test because it's not reasonable. It's as simple as that. It's not reasonable to put a condition on that can never be accomplished.
Thank you. Good. Okay, so hopefully no more questions, in which case we can move on to discuss the merits or otherwise of this application and your thoughts on it. So who would like to start that debate? Councillor Eden, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I've listened with great interest. Excuse me. I think a lot of what Joe has put forward for me has helped me make my mind up about the way that I'm going to go on this. I think that if we're talking about potentially applying difficult but achievable conditions that we don't know because the consultees also don't know, then that information isn't there for us to be able to make that decision either. Is where I'm stood. I like the principle of the idea of what's being proposed, but for me, I think I'm going to have to go with the officer's decision on this, or recommendation, just simply because we don't know enough to be able to make any other decision in the face of 6 reasons for refusal and 3 agencies or consultees objecting. So for me, I would have to go with refuse.
Thank you, Councillor Eden. Councillor Harvey.
Yes, thank you. There is a problem. There's undoubtedly a problem, and I wish there was an easy. I'm sure the parish council would wish there was an easy solution. Had this application been simply for a football pitch on that, the one element of the site, which I know that you'd have separate questions of access, but leave that on one side. I think that would have been a much easier question to answer, that one. But as it is, and it's an application which has objections from the Flood Authority, from the highways, and I can't see that trying to solve that problem by condition, given the advice we've received, given the risks involved to the volunteering of acceptance of risks by the district council if we went against the advice or the recommendation of the objection from the highways authority. The other factor I think is the scale. 82 spaces for a drop-off car park doesn't square with me. So I think there isn't enough there for me to recommend or to go with the decision to approve. So I'm prepared to propose that we accept the officer's recommendation and refuse.
Thank you for that proposal, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Parker.
Yes, I mean, I think I'm minded the same way. I kind of want to remind colleagues that, of course, the 82 was to prevent them having to come back at a later date and that they wouldn't necessarily build that. And had this been an application on, in terms of flooding, less sensitive land, that would seem like a good idea. But on land which is so sensitive to flooding, sandbagging, which is an unfortunate phrase in this circumstance, sandbagging your parking spaces probably just means it's very difficult to get behind this application.
Thank you, Councillor Eden.
Given Councillor Harvey's proposal, I will second that proposal.
Thank you. So we have a second. Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, as the ward member for Wellesbourne North and Rural, I'm very aware of the traffic issues surrounding the school. I'm also very much aware of the huge amount of effort that the parish council has been undertaking over, I mean, it's double-digit years. I've been a councillor for Wellesbourne for nearly, well, certainly well over 12 years. And so I am aware of the issues both to residents, and I'm also aware of the flooding issues. I'm also aware of the traffic, and quite often I have to make a conscious decision coming from Morton Morrell to Stratford to avoid the New Bold Road in the morning because you just can't get through. The impact of 1,000 additional houses in the village has been huge, and the biggest issue is that the houses that Wellesbourne has had put upon them are in the south part of the village, which means children are, if they're lucky enough to get a place and not have to be transported to Stratford, to Morton, to Kyneton, to Hampton Lucy, they certainly are at least 2 miles away. So the parish council has done a huge amount of work to try and overcome the issue on parking and try and get a drop-off. Looking at this application, for me, it's not quite right. It's a little bit premature because we haven't got the additional evidence. But I know it's a bit like a chicken and an egg, and it's a big balancing exercise. I think if there was an opportunity to look at a slightly different access by the nursery, so it didn't come off New Bold Road, so that the access bit didn't actually feature in the flood zone 3 area, and there were not as many as 82 or 86 spaces, then that would be helpful. There's nothing more that I would love to do than to grant this, because I know it would solve a lot of the issues. But I'm very mindful. I have sat on planning committee for so many years, and you know, where we have a situation where the highways are objecting, where the local lead flood authority is objecting, and the environmental association organisation is objecting, it does make it very challenging for us.
Yeah, thank you.
And therefore, I'm going to have to go, regrettably, with the officer's recommendation, because I don't feel I have the evidence in order to grant it, and material planning reasons.
Thank you. So a number of you have spoken. What I'm going to ask is whether or not anyone else would like to enter the debate with any fresh ideas or thoughts. Or if you have fresh ideas or thoughts, please bring them forward. If not, there's no real point in going over the same ground. Would anybody like to speak? I'm just conscious of time. It's 7:10 already. Councillor Harding.
Just a quickie. It just does not look like the design of a drop-off and pick-up zone to me, and you don't need 82 spaces for that. Have a look at Birmingham Airport. The 10-minute drop-off there is a long lay-by, easy to get in, drop-off, easy to get out. This needs a better design if it's going to be a pick-up and drop-off zone than this design.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harding. I'm taking it that's it. We're done with the discussion. So we have a proposal from Councillor Harvey in respect of this application 2301891, and that is to follow the officer's recommendations that this is refused for the reasons set out in the officer's report. That proposal was seconded by Councillor Iden, as I remember, and I'd like to put that proposal to a vote. Please, a show of your cards. We'll do that nicely.
It's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So this committee resolves to refuse 2301891 FUL, that's land to the west and east of Wellesbourne Junior School, in accordance with the recommendations of the officer's report. Thank you very much for everybody's contributions. I'm sorry it took quite a long time, but obviously we wanted to give it a thorough examination. And we're going to take a natural break for a couple of minutes because of the length of time that took. So please bear with us. So we're going to resume the meeting now, members. Thank you. Is that everybody here? So the next item on the agenda is item number 5, and that's application 2500914 LBC, and it's a site at 20 Combrook, Warwick. And the presenting officer is Robert Parker Gulliford. Robert, over to you when you're ready to take us through, please.
Thank you, Chair. Listed billing consent is sought for internal alterations and works which have been completed. The initial slide, you can see the approximate location of the application site signified by the black dot on the plan. Second slide, here we can see the site edged in red within the wider vicinity adjacent to the church and opposite the hall. The conservation area boundary is marked by the purple line, and other listed buildings are shaded red. This photograph illustrates the front elevation, which comprises 3 cottages. Externally, the building is in its original form, and alterations have only been carried out internally. On this slide, we can see 2 plans. The top plan shows the ground floor before alterations took place, and the lower plan shows the layout with the works complete. If I can highlight the main differences, in the existing layout, which shows works that have been carried out, we have the walls either side of the chimney breast removed. We have the 2 fireplaces removed to create 1 open fireplace. And we have a doorway to the rear room blocked in. As you'll see in the later plan, the doorway has been moved to the first floor. The historical plan is typical for a cottage of this type. It basically has 2 principal rooms with a hallway that leads from the front to the backyard, and the hallway also contains a stairwell. The photographs on the right, on the top, you can see the fireplace to the rear room as it was, and on the right you can see the room with the flanking walls either side, the modern fireplace that was, the existing door, that hasn't changed. Then the photographs below, you can see the central fireplace, chimney breast, with the central fireplace and the walls removed either side to create a more open plan. The photograph to the right, that shows the blocked-in doorway from the hallway to the rear room. And then the photograph to the right, that shows the existing door in place to the front room. Next slide, this shows the previous and existing layout for the first floor. If I can highlight the areas where alterations have taken place, a partition wall has been removed from the rear bedroom. As you can see the plan below, this shows the new layout where the works are being completed. This shows a new doorway to the rear bedroom. The front bedroom, the original doorway off the landing to bedroom 1 has been retained, but a new doorway has been inserted from the landing into bedroom 1, and the original doorway has been used to access a new ensuite, which involves the installation of a raised floor over the landing and part of the stairwell. The photographs at the top show the original door into bedroom 1 at the front and the landing and stairwell as historically designed. The photographs below, this shows the front bedroom with the new doorway, the doorway that was the entrance to the bedroom leading to the new ensuite, and a new doorway that provides access from the bedroom to the landing. Also, you'll see above the new doorway there's a new fan light, which includes the reuse of a Victorian stained glass window. The middle photograph that shows the original doorway into the bedroom, which now leads into the ensuite. And then the far right photo, this shows the new doorways on the first floor leading into the front bedroom and rear bedroom with the new fan lights over.
Oh, right, hang on. We just got an IT issue at the moment, so we're just going to stop sharing for a second while we sort that out. Oh, is it freed up again? Thank you.
The final page that shows, again, the first floor layout. The top two photos are the same as previously shown. The bottom photographs on the left, it shows the new doorway into the front bedroom, the partitioning to the ensuite off the landing, and the photo on the right shows the partitioning on the landing and over the stairwell to create the ensuite. That ends the presentation. The recommendation is to refuse the listed billing consent application for the reasons set out on page 28 of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert. Right, we have speakers on this item. To start with, we have Councillor Brenda Rayson, who's speaking in support of the application. Councillor Rayson, if you'd like to come up, good evening to you. Thank you very much. You have 3 minutes on this item. Councillor Rayson, yep, that's it. That's that right-hand button. And in a minute, you're going to be famous because you're going to be on live TV. Well, if you put the microphone on, I can. So it's a red. If it's got a red, that's it.
Can you hear me?
Yes. And if you speak up a little bit into it, then that would be...
I'm old.
Well, that's got nothing to do with it, really, has it? Let's be honest. You just need to get you quite close. Anyway, 3 minutes. When you're ready, you start, and I'll follow you with my clock.
Okay. I'll start. First, to make clear, the report fails to acknowledge section 6 of the application form. The applicant states these works were undertaken in 2023 following advice received during a telephone call to the authority's General Planning Advisory Service. They were given permission. Well, they thought they were given permission. They didn't need an application. John Careford issued a statement in 2024, including an apology, fully acknowledging that the works were undertaken as a result of such advice. Back in autumn 23, I was told by the planning manager that they have a way to work around such matters. 2 years later, we are sitting here, and it now seems that you, this committee, have to sort it out. This report highlights elements of the interior plan at number 20, suggesting this is attributable to the renowned architect John Gibson. First slide, please. Oh, that's on there already. Gibson's expertise is recognisable in the astute placement of his Gothic works across Combrook, including the estate housing, with public-facing elevations and roof lines carefully crafted and individually decorated to recreate a sense of Compton-Verney's long-lost Gothic village. However, the internal plans for the terrace are simply an example of the most modest two-up, two-down introduced across cities and towns during the 19th century to provide housing for the working classes. The house builder could be left to manage such interior plan and ensure the detail appropriate for the modest means. No separate kitchen or pantries, a communal water tap in the middle of the village, and down the back garden for the earth closet. The plan form is easily recognisable if you now step into number 20 after the works which have been done. It enables flow through the two living areas. Starting with the very narrow hallway as you enter, you see a staircase as well, both narrow, and they are recognisably small. But when you enter into a Gothic revival. You enter into a revival of the Gothic revival. Your officer seems to have avoided the clear guidance from Historic England, which the Parish Council provided on page 3 of its submission back in May. The best way to preserve a building is to keep it in use. An unreasonable, inflexible approach will prevent action that could give a building new life. A reasonable and proportionate approach to owners' needs is therefore essential. Retaining the authenticity of a place is not always achieved by retaining as much of the existing fabric as is technically possible. That comes from Historic England, Conservation Principles, Policies and Guidance. I urge you to approve this application. If you're minded to do otherwise, might I suggest you visit the property and see for yourself. We welcomed a lovely couple of residents into our village in 2023. They have taken part, they're completely involved in our village. I went with them to a meeting where they represented our interests, and they're here to stay. They've made that, can I have the next slide, please?
Could you bring it to a conclusion now,
Yes.
please, Councillor Rayson?
It's still the same property that Gibson imagined and drew and wanted. The interior will enable it to continue, and it is in a Gothic style inside.
Thank you very much. Now, thank you for that. Councillors, do you have any questions for Councillor Rayson, please? I'm looking over my glasses. I've taken them off. I can't see any questions. So thank you very much, Councillor Rayson, for your presentation. Okay, so now we have Sam Fard and Claudia Rivers, who are the applicants. Good evening, both. Thank you very much for coming in. Now you have 3 minutes between you. So I guess you've worked out how you're going to do that. Yeah, looks like it. 3 minutes to tell us about your application and what you've been doing, and start when you're ready.
Members of the committee, it is difficult to explain the full complexity of this case in 3 minutes, but I hope you'll see that everything done to 20 Combrook has been for its long-term preservation and improvement. When I bought the house, it was derelict, stripped of all internal historical features in the 70s, neglected, drenched in nicotine and on the market for several years. What stands today shows how an historic home can be adapted for modern living, while enhancing, not erasing its heritage, something you can clearly see in the before and after pictures. Preserving history through stagnation only leads to rot and decline. The report references authenticity, but if one was truly authentic to these properties, we would still all be using chamber pots in Combrook. Change, when done with care, keeps these homes lived in, loved, and alive. I have been relentless in the details, which has resulted in a Gothic revival property called Homely by my friends and Beautiful by my heritage consultant. The report obsesses over public benefit, but seems to overlook that by the standards of historic England, we have reached the public benefit threshold on all 3 levels. At only 870 square feet, every inch of this house does now have a purpose. A cold landing and claustrophobic damp back room, once dark and unused, are now light, welcoming spaces. I've reused original materials, salvaged antique fan lights and radiators, and restored craftsmanship we're sadly losing in so many historic homes. This application only became retrospective because the council gave me misleading advice that such works do not require an LBC, something they have since acknowledged and apologised for. I would never risk my own home by avoiding the LBC process. This has caused immense personal strain. 3 winters without functional heating or an oven, simply waiting for a resolution to the situation and being stuck, unable to be moved forwards. I've been promised I would be met within a spirit of negotiation. This has never arisen. This process has been truly adversarial and draining. I welcomed SCC into my home this summer because I wanted the officers to firsthand see the love that went into this property. The report is in stark contrast to many of the positive comments and observations made during that visit. I was truly hopeful I would not be sat here today. I ask the committee to look beyond the paperwork and see the care, honesty and quality behind this restoration. 20 Combrook is now a home that honours its past and has a safe future, a place worthy of its history and its community. I hope you will let me keep it. Thank you.
All right, okay. So, sorry, Claudia, have you finished now? So you were well within time. Thank you. And please, I sense. Sorry, thank you, Amy. I always need to be reminded how to use that. We certainly don't want this experience of you coming to tell us about what you've done to your house to be adversarial and draining and very stressful, and that's not how we approach these things at this committee. We're interested to know what's gone on, obviously, but we're also interested to know what our policies say, because you bought quite an important property by the sound of it. So I'm interested to know if some members have got some questions for you as to perhaps why you decided to do the work and why you needed the extra bathroom and things like that. So I think Councillor Harvey will start.
This is, again, not a question to try and catch you out in any sense at all, and it may be impossible for you to answer, but in your comments you made reference to the 1970s and alterations that had been taking place then. Given that you probably weren't even born in the 1970s, but can you identify what the before and after changes were in the 1970s, please?
I mean, it was gutted. So providing it's a terrace, you can, compare and contrast with your neighbours. It was gutted. And we're talking about polystyrene ceiling tiles that have been coated in nicotine and then painted multiple times. It was just truly flammable and a bit of a hazard.
The previous owners were carpenters. So you can see the wood cladding which runs down the hallway in the photo. That was throughout the whole property. Downstairs, apologies. Fireplaces were installed there or thereabouts in the 70s and 80s. There was a extension made to the property around roughly the same sort of time, which is where the kitchen is at the moment, which again is very derelict. So all in all, plus the history, the property was in the same ownership for the whole time. We've purchased it from, I want to say, the modern original owners. And also the parish council and all the neighbours in Combrook that have been there for many, many years. They've been to the property previously. And it was rather apparent that the alterations were made sometimes in the 70s. The architecture of the design language fits with the 70s also. There was hardly any original features in the property left, unfortunately.
Can I just play that back to you in very simple terms? So what you're telling the committee is that when you acquired the property, alterations had been done prior to your becoming the owners, and the property was in a state which was not the original state as built. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else like to ask a question of... Yes, Councillor Harding.
I'm interested in the advice you received, which led you to think that you didn't need to apply for planning permission. Can you remember what you were told exactly?
Vividly. I made the call myself to the council. It was a lengthy call. I was passed from one person to another when I explained the situation. The last person I spoke to was a lady called Claire. She asked for the address. She pulled up the details on your side. I went through what we were planning on doing to the property. She said, as far as she can see on her side, there's no mention of the internals of the property, nor the terrace on the listing. And as long as none of the works are to the external, the listed part of the property, that's what was used, the works are fine and we don't need to apply for an LBC. Otherwise, we would have. We were ready. I had the forms printed, ready to go.
I think it's right to say that we are considering a retrospective application for the works that took place. Okay, so the property was a certain style and a certain build, and some works have been done internally that you've seen been presented by the case officer that require consent. Now, it's unfortunate that we're in this situation where the applicants feel that they were given perhaps some wrong advice, but our job tonight really is to have a look at the detail of the listed building consent and what is actually required and what was changed. But I think Councillor Harvey's asked a pertinent question about perhaps some of the changes that took place earlier on, before the current applicant made their changes. Are there any other questions? Councillor, yes, that's good. Brought some questions out. Councillor Hedges-Herefin.
Good evening. The other properties, have you been inside those? Have they had any alterations previous?
Yes, we have, and it's interesting you mentioned this. So the listing is for 18, 19, and 20 Combrook, the terrace that you saw in the earlier photos. Some of the works that we have done were actually works that number 18 had put an LBC in and was approved. So if you, in the parish council report that you would have received also, there is explanation on the more indication on the works that was approved with no questions or no hesitations that we have almost replicated. In terms of their current standing, the terrace is now in a much better condition than it was originally. Number 18, they have completed works. That home, similarly, it was in a very similar situation to ours. It was on the market for, it was derelict, it was empty for a long time. It was at a point of almost falling down, which is what 20 was too. That project has now completed. That building is owned by our neighbour also. So as a terrace, as a threesome of buildings, it is kept really well, and everyone is almost in line with what the building has to be and what it was.
Thank you. Councillor Hedges-Herefin, did you have a follow-up? I was just going to say...
Just a quick follow-up.
Yep.
Yeah. I think I agree with what the parish council said. It would have been a good idea for people to actually come and have a look at these things, because you get a better idea.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hedges-Herefin. We're really focused on asking questions, not making observations. But what I would do is to say, of course, you will have the opportunity to ask the case officer about the extent of the changes. Councillor Fleming.
Thank you. Having witnessed 1970s modernisation of an old property, it's now obviously in a much better condition than it was as you took it over, because I think you said in your earliest presentation that you virtually rescued this from almost dereliction. Is that really how it was when you took it over?
That is correct. And if you look at the Historic England's test for assets at risk, 20 Combrook would have fallen within that, albeit not officially recognised. But if you actually go through the test, a property that is in disrepair, sat vacant for prolonged time, is an asset at risk, and that's what 20 Combrook was. Hence, the property sat on the market for a number of years. The project was far too large for anyone to take on. Even, I mentioned our neighbour next door owns number 18 and number 19. The project, you can also argue, was far too big for them to take on.
Okay, thank you. You can with another question. Yeah, please use your microphone.
Yeah, in the notes we've got here, Victorian Society says the works caused less than substantial harm. Did you have somebody come out and inspect the changes?
Not from the Victorian Society, no. That was a consultee contacted by the officers.
Further questions? No, in which case, thank you very much indeed, both of you, for helping us understand what you've done. All right, members, now you asked some questions there in respect of the works that were done, and you might wish to ask for points of clarification. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Have I missed somebody? Oh, yeah, I beg your pardon. It's Councillor Johnston again. I do apologise, Councillor Johnson. It's just that when you read across here, you've got to go back to the beginning to get to... that's just an excuse, by the way, but you've got to go back to the beginning to find out who the first person is that's supposed to be speaking, but you're the last person. So, Councillor Johnson, you have 5 minutes to tell us about this.
Thank you, Chair. I won't take 5 minutes. Most all the points I wanted to make have been made already. My principal concern with the report is that it does not refer to the conversations between the applicants and the district council, which led them to carrying out these works. This matter was investigated by the head of development, who appointed an independent person to get involved. These arose from other matters not relevant to this application, but it was the head of development who suggested that a retrospective planning application should be made in this case. I am convinced the applicants are committed to doing the right thing by their property and by the district council. They've used sympathetic materials in the work that they've carried out. I would suggest that a more fair and reasonable approach in all the circumstances is to approve the application. There are 6 elements in the application. If it's thought necessary, conditions could be applied on those elements that are causing concern.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. Members, any questions for Councillor Johnston? Thank you very much for your contributions, and I apologise again profusely for overlooking you. Members, right, here is your opportunity to ask questions of the case officer who has looked at the works that have been carried out and has presented them in his report. Do you? Who would like to ask a question? Councillor Parry.
Thank you, and good evening. Can I just ask, obviously with the history of this particular case and the fact that the adjacent properties had carried out internal works, did you visit the neighbouring properties to see what that was, in order that, because it is mentioned in the committee report concerns about a precedent being set, but if the neighbouring properties have carried out internal works and have LBC consent, I'm just interested to know whether you and your team visited neighbouring properties as well.
And probably just to add to your question, Councillor Parry, without wishing to put words in your mouth, be interesting to know whether or not the scale and scope of the works were similar. I think that's what you were getting at.
When we get a listed building application of this complexity, then we always make a site visit. Sometimes the submitted information isn't complete, so sometimes we have to look at things ourselves and interpret what we see, and we have to look at the implications of what's proposed and the effect on the special interest of the building. When we're looking at special interest, we're looking at the features that define the character of that building. It's not just individual features, it's the whole plan form, layout, fabric. It's like dealing with an antique. We're looking at the whole thing, not just individual parts. So yes, when we did get an application for number 18, I did do a site visit. We do have comparative plans that show number 18 and 20 as is, if that would help. Right, what we have here are plans for 20 and 18 Combrook, as was and as proposed. As you can see, the layout is more or less a mirror image. The proposed plans at the bottom, and on the bottom right you'll see the proposed plan for 18 Combrook. And as you'll see, that this leaves the doorways to each room intact, it leaves the chimney breast intact, and it leaves the walls either side intact. So that's the ground floor. Just to step back a bit, as you'll recall, the layout for 20 Combrook involves the removal of the walls either side of the chimney breast, the knocking through of the fireplaces to create one fireplace, and the blocking in of doorway to the rear room. On the first floor, again, a mirror image, comparable footprint, room sizes, etc. 18 Combrook was bought a number of years ago. Not sure how it's used at present, but I assume it's lived in. As you'll see, the plan form at the bottom is more or less intact as the previous state. The alteration involved the removal of a wall in part, the enlargement of a space on the landing, and moving the doorway from the original position to just off the top of the staircase. So my view is that the alterations to 18 Combrook weren't as extensive or damaging as they are for 20 Combrook.
Chair, can I just come back with another question?
Yes, of course.
The recommendation on the summary on the last page in the committee report highlights the concern that the substantial harm being caused is not outweighed by a public benefit. Yeah? And that's the main thing. In the event that the property owners were to occasionally rent one of the bedrooms out as a place to stay, and there are no other bed and breakfast or rooms available in Combrook, would that count as a public benefit for someone to come and stay in a beautiful heritage room on that basis?
I've got to interrupt you there, probably, Councillor Parry. That sounds like a very leading question. To me, I think probably the case officer would agree, but I'll ask him if he would comment on it for you. I think your question is, could somebody let out a room in one of the houses in this village?
And therefore, would that constitute a public benefit?
Okay.
Buildings are listed in the public interest. The process of listing has gone through a democratic, wide national process, and the stock we have is pretty limited. I think only about 4% of buildings are listed, so they're rare and everyone is different. If we have building that's redundant, it's in the public interest to bring that building back into use to ensure its long-term management and preservation. So if you require alterations to bring it back into use and those alterations are judged to be essential and they're justified, then it is legitimate, I think, to consider such alterations. I think whereby you're looking at a use that remains more or less the same, residential, we're not looking at a commercial use. There is limited public benefit. It's limited to those who can enjoy it. There may be economic benefits, but I don't think this is a consideration in this case.
Okay, thank you for that. Further questions? Oh, hang on. We're going over that side now. Councillor Fleming first. I think all three of you? No, just you and Councillor Parker and then Councillor Harvey. Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Fleming.
Your observations on what you now see in that house, do you think, in your opinion, as for whatever your job description actually is it better or worse than what was there before? If it's a 1970s lash-up that was falling down, is what's done now surely in the public benefit because it was unlivable before and now it's a livable property that's up to 21st century standards?
As the application stands, we've got no evidence of what the 1970s interventions were. We accept that it was in a bad state. What we're not convinced is that the extent of the alterations is justified or essential to maintain the viability of this building. We're not questioning the quality of the work. We've seen what's been carried out, and we're comfortable that it's been done to a very high standard. But what we're looking at are the alterations that were carried out, and we're not convinced that a lot of them were essential.
Councillor Parker?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm looking for a steer on, I'm looking at number 18, I'm looking at number 20, and I'm seeing that obviously the bathroom is upstairs on both, and I guess when they were built there wasn't a bathroom upstairs, and I'm trying to work out in my mind that someone made the decision that moving the bathroom upstairs to a given position was a good thing and was okay, and now someone's made a decision that in fact the bathroom should be upstairs and should be divided into two, and I'm trying to work out, are we saying that that is bad? And I'm sure in his inimitable way, Councillor Keithley will rephrase what I'm saying.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether I want to split a bathroom into two. But
my
I do understand what you're trying to say. You know, at what point do the changes become no longer acceptable? Is that what you're really getting at?
It is in as much as had someone in 1958 or whatever, when that bathroom was moved upstairs, had they decided it should be in two bathrooms at that point, then we wouldn't be discussing it as being two bathrooms now. And I'm just really not clear how you know, at what point do you say that was vinted? Thank you.
I think the easiest way to say it, there was no permission granted other than what's today before you. So someone obviously decided to do it. Whether they were allowed to do it is a different question. So when Rob does his assessment as a conservation officer, he has to assess what was originally listed and the layouts and all of what's in front of him compared to what's been built. So that's where Rob's assessment comes from.
Yeah, you want to follow up?
Yeah, sorry. So it's at the point where the house is listed is where ground zero is. Is that kind of right?
In general terms, conservation is about managing change. When we're looking at proposals for change, we have to weigh out what sort of impact that may have on the building special interest. We look at historical plan. Sometimes you can adapt that sensitively. We have large country houses that change to hotels, and we have to allow en suites to make it operate. That's essential to allow the long-term maintenance of that building and the economics of running it. We're always looking at the level of harm that something might create. And if there is identified harm to what makes up the distinctive character of that building, we have to say, is that harm in the public interest to make the building viable and operable? We accept the buildings can't be retained in their original condition quite often. Nobody wants to live in the Victorian times. But buildings do need modern facilities, en suites sometimes. But it's to what degree that impacts on the historical character, layout, architectural intention, etc. And if you remove historical fabric, that's irreversible. And if there's cumulative change, that can have greater impact. And that's how we viewed this application, that the cumulative change is quite severe.
Thank you, Robert. Which is why we've got Robert's in-depth expertise to help us understand why this is in front of us now. And incidentally, we've just looked up the listing and it was 1997. So relatively recently, actually, within the last 25 years or so, that it was listed. Councillor Harvey's looking at me.
Indeed, I am. On page 22 of the report that you've prepared, we're told that the Victorian Society regards the works cause less than substantial harm to the building's special architectural and historic interest. In coming to that assessment, did the person from the Victorian Society use the same framework criteria that you did?
We all follow national standards in conservation, which relate to policy as contained in NPPF, general conservation standards, and we follow Historic England guidance. We look at things using the umbrella that framework provides. So, to all intents and purposes, the officers in the Victorian Society, they behave and interpret things the same way we do. Yeah.
Thank you.
Members, if you've got no further questions, I'd like to move us on to just debating this application, please. I'm thinking there are no further questions for the case officers, and you're trying to figure out whether or not, or which way you're thinking about the application and the recommendation of the officer and what you've seen. Who would like to start? Somebody different. Peter Hench-Serafin, Councillor Hench-Serafin.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Peter.
I can understand these historical buildings if it was in the public interest, as it was a place where the public would go and visit, is to put it back to the original plan. But in reality, for modern day living, it wouldn't be acceptable. And as the applicants have done such a wonderful job and kept it with the aesthetics of the era, I would rather support this application, and I would go against the officer's recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hench-Serafin. Who else would like to comment on this? Councillor Harding. You're struggling with it all, aren't you?
Yes, it all hinges on this. What is the public benefit? And I think Councillor Hench-Serafin has put his finger on it, is that the public doesn't have access to this building. So what loss of public benefit is there in allowing this application to go through? It seems to me that the applicants have improved the housing stock, and there is considerable benefit to future generations in terms of having a listed building to hand on to future generations. So I agree with Councillor Hench-Serafin.
Okay, thanks for that. Just a comment on this. The expert, the case officer, has identified that there is less than substantial harm, but in fact, perhaps one line of thinking for you might be to decide that, in fact, you don't think there's any harm to the building, rather than work on the basis of whether or not the public can get access or there's public benefit because it's a private property. So, anybody else like to speak now? A couple of hands going up. I'll take Councillor Fleming first.
I'm going to say the public benefit first. I know you've just said we've got to steer away from that. Public
I did try and stay away from it.
Yeah, I'm not very good at being steered. Public benefit is there's a perfectly good house, perfectly livable in, been decorated and modified in keeping with the original idea. Or the option is we look at a derelict house that was falling down. So the public benefit straight away is that we've got an asset in that village that is well maintained and done with a good eye on what they should have done. So from my perspective, I'll be supporting, and I'm not prepared to propose just yet, but I'll be going against the officer's recommendation on this occasion.
And your thinking for that is that it's a house that was not livable and we brought that into the housing stock effectively. Is that what you're thinking?
Yes, and they've done it in keeping with as close as they can to maintain
I'm just
it as a modern
clarifying.
living standard.
Okay.
To keep it as a modern living standard, with their eye on the heritage asset.
I'll just reiterate what I said a minute ago. The works that are done were done for the benefit of the private individuals that live there, not for public benefit. So just bear that in mind as well. But I think I understand the point that you're making. If it was proven, in fact, this house was effectively derelict, then it wasn't a house anyone could live in. And something's changed, and it's now a house that can be lived in. I think Councillor Parker, you were going to speak.
Yes, please, Chair. I'm kind of not ready to make a decision yet, but I just want to talk loudly, as you might say if you were Greek. Basically, I've got little truck with complaining about upstairs because the upstairs was chopped up when that bathroom went upstairs. Downstairs, there was this classic two-room layout with corridor down the side, and that has been disrupted by this change, and I think that rankles with the planning officer, who has a lot of experience with all of this, and that is kind of undeniable. So for me, although I've not made a decision yet, I'm only really considering the downstairs and what they have, what has transpired there, and maybe that will help another councillor come forward with something to help me clear my view. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Parker, you're staying downstairs. So, anybody else like to enter this debate in? Councillor Scorer, sorry, have I missed you? Can you please don't fight amongst yourselves? I will choose Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Chair. If one looks at the committee's report, the conclusion that is actually, there's an element of the conclusion that is suggesting that a precedent has been created. However, in view of the works that have been carried out on the adjacent property, which is part of the overall listed building, because the listed building is all three properties, there hasn't been a precedent created here because there's been major alterations done to the adjacent property. I therefore don't believe in this case either that there is substantial harm that has been caused, and that it is, in my view, I don't feel there is an impact on the public benefit. So I think the works that have been undertaken has actually enhanced and brought what was an empty home, and as a council, what we're trying to do is to bring empty homes back into property ownership. And on the basis that this home was pretty derelict, had been on the market for several years without anybody wishing to take it on, and we now have an additional dwelling available, and that has to be a public benefit to the whole of the district, having brought an empty home back into the circulation of property ownership. So I am in support of this application.
Right, thank you, Councillor Parry. I'm just wondering if I could play that back to you and ask you whether or not you consider making a proposal. I beg your pardon. Somebody's trying to talk to me. Just hold on a minute. Yes, I'll just replay back to you. to see whether or not you'd be prepared to make a proposal on this basis. That what you said is that you could see there'd been major alterations to the adjacent property, so that you didn't see that less than substantial harm had been created to number 20. And on that basis, given that the alterations were sympathetic and enhanced the property, you'd be happy to propose that this application be granted. Thank you, Councillor Parry. Oh, now there's all sorts of hands going up I can see through my wide vision. I think it was Councillor Scorer first.
Thank you, Chair. I understand what the officer says, that there's only 4% housing stock which are listed in the UK. However, I think for me, the listing of this building was the style of the outside with the row of cottages. I think that inside that things evolve, and obviously the inside has certainly evolved when it was first constructed. I agree with Councillor Parker that I think upstairs it's minimal change, and downstairs I think that basically I know they've taken not through the fireplace but and taken a hallway out, but I think for the evolution of housing stock, things change, and in my mind I don't think it's caused that much harm to the building, so I agree with Councillor Parry, and I would quite happily second that, Chair.
Councillor Parker.
Sorry, Chair, I don't wish to hog, and I will be very brief. So taking on this notion, and I think there is perhaps some agreement that the changes upstairs, given that the bathroom was put in relatively recently in comparison with the life of the house, that the upstairs impact is much less. I wonder if we could argue that the cumulative impact, which is concerning the officer, is in fact less because the cumulative impact is only in the downstairs. I wonder if we could bake that into any comment that we may make. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Well, I go back to Councillor Parry's proposal, and I think we just keep it quite simple. I think what we say is that, as I see what you've proposed, so Councillor Parry, not trying to put words in your mouth, I'm trying to remember what you said exactly, which was something along the lines that there had been alterations to the adjacent property, and that you felt that the alterations to 20 did not cause less than substantial harm in your view. It was sympathetic and it enhanced the property. And we will focus on that issue of harm. And if you believe that the changes did not cause less than substantial harm, then that's your... what's happened to that? That's your reason for making the proposal to grant. And we'll keep it at that because I don't want to get into the debate about whether or not changes to private dwellings are in the public interest, because we've had other examples of that where we've seen that, in fact, we can't say that there has been public benefit as a result of changes internally to a private dwelling. So I think we'll focus on that reason. So that would be your proposal.
Very happy to accept that, Chair.
Thank you. And the seconder was?
Yeah, I'm happy to second that, Chair.
Okay. So we've got, I'm assuming nobody else wants to speak at this point. Thank you. Am I right in saying that? Yeah, okay. Can't see you all, but never mind. Okay, in which case we have a proposal from Councillor Parry, seconded by Councillor Scorer, in respect of application 2500914, listed building consent at 20 Combrook, CV 359HP, and the proposal is to grant this application. Actually, that's against the advice of the officer, but because this committee believes that because there have been some major alterations to the adjacent property that this committee does not believe there has been less than substantial harm caused to 20 Combrook. Okay, so on that basis, I would like to see a show of cards, please. All those in favour. Thank you, Amy.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much, everybody. In which case, committee resolves to grant 2500914 LBC on that basis. There are no conditions required because this is a retrospective application. Thank you very much for your contributions, everybody. And we will take another 5-minute break. You've taken us to 8:10. There he is. Right, committee, we'll resume. Thank you very much for your patience this evening, by the way, if you're in the public gallery. So our next application is 2501544 FUL, that's 102A Maidenhead Road, Stratford-upon-Avon. And the presenting officer is Stuart McIver. Stuart, over to you, please.
2 seconds, Chair. There's a number of IT issues, so I will pass my computer over to Stuart, so I do apologise.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, Stuart, when you're ready.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So, proposal before members is a full planning application for extension, refurbishment of existing dwelling, including rendering, replacement windows, extension of raised patio with associated minor demolition works, a garage conversion, replacement gates, fence into the front elevation, and erection of outbuildings at 102A Maidenhead Road, Stratford-on-Avon. Application site denoted by the black dot. So we move on to the, you can see the application site outlined in red. You've got Maidenhead Road running north-south to the east. And then we go on to the existing site plan. So you can see the existing dwelling located here. And then we move on to the proposed site plan. So what you can see shaded in orange is the works that are proposed. And then we go on to the proposed front elevation with the boundary treatment illustrated. And this plan also shows the proposed summer house. And then we got the proposed side elevations. And then we've got the proposed front and then rear elevation to the bottom. And then we've got an image of the access looking from Maidenhead Road. And then another image of the existing dwelling here with the access as existing. And then we've got another image from the rear garden. So you've got the existing raised patio here. And then we've got another image which is taken from the raised patio, and then we are looking south towards the adjacent property. So this is the rear garden of 100 Maiden Road. And then we've got an image from the rear garden. So this is looking towards the area where the proposed summer house will be. And then again, rear garden, but this is looking towards where the proposed shed and bike store and the pergola would be roughly located here. So in summary, it's considered that the application for the proposed works it does conform to the relevant policies of the core strategy, and it is there recommended that this application is approved. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Stuart. We have no speakers on this item. No? In which case, members, if you've got any questions, points of clarification to the case officer, you might wish to ask those. I do have one myself, if you don't mind, Stuart. For me, it's quite important that we consider these third-party representations, and there's been some comments about overlooking issues in respect of number 100 Maidenhead Road, and I wondered if you could please help members understand the nature of those objections and response to that.
Yes, I think the main concerns are from the neighbour. So this is 100 Maidenhead Road, so this is their rear garden. Their concerns are with, so there are some proposed roof lights to this side elevation. I think their concern is there is going to be overlooking into their garden. The officer has addressed this in the report. So if I go to the relevant side elevation, so these are the proposed roof lights. So these are 3.5 metres above ground floor level. Obviously, that's considered above the height that if somebody was stood, that they could see through these. This is could see through these roof lights. This is a single-storey projection of the dwelling, so it's basically not possible to be stood and to look out through those roof lights towards the adjacent property.
Okay, so thank you for that. So what you're saying, there's a high-level roof lights, and you're satisfied that there is no intrusion on the neighbours as a result?
That's correct.
Thank you, Stuart. Are there further questions? Councillor Harding.
Yeah, just following on from that, is there, this objection was purely on the grounds of overlooking from the windows. Is there any suggestion that the extended raised patio is going to pose a problem?
So if I take you to, hopefully this slide will help. So they're looking to extend the raised patio further into the rear garden. The distance from this patio at its nearest point to the neighbour at 100 Maidenhead Road is 9 metres. So I think the relevant SPD advice with regard to windows overlooking neighbouring gardens is a minimum separation of 10 metres. This is obviously 9 metres, so it is slightly below that, but we're not dealing with windows here in this situation. It's a raised patio area. The patio area is only raised 1 metre above ground floor level. I would also note that if we go back to the proposed site plan, that so this raised patio area is located here. So looking to the south towards the neighbouring garden, we're considerably far down their rear garden. The usable amenity space for properties is normally located directly outside the rear elevation, so we're a significant distance away from there. There's also existing vegetation. Granted, vegetation can be removed, so it's not in perpetuity, but as it stands, we don't consider that there would be any overlooking from this raised patio to the adjacent neighbour.
Thank you, Stuart. Good question, Councillor Harding. Is that all the questions? In which case, could we move on to a discussion, debate about this? Would anybody like to kick us off? Yes, Councillor Eden.
I think the reasons for objection have been suitably addressed by the officer and explained during his presentation. So I'd like to propose we go with his recommendation and grant.
Thank you. So I have a proposal from Councillor Eden. Councillor Padgham.
Yeah, just to follow on from what Councillor Eden said, I totally agree. I'd like to second that proposal.
Okay, anybody else like to come in on the discussion? In which case I have a proposal from Councillor Eden to grant 2501544 FUL at 102A Maidenhead Road in accordance with the recommendation of the officers and the conditions 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 as set out in the report, and that is seconded by Councillor Padgham. Right. On that basis then, could I see cards in favour of that proposal?
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. So thank you very much for that, everybody. Council, the Planning Committee recommend that as a grant for 250154 FUL, subject to the conditions set out in the officer's report. Thank you for that. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is TPO 201138. So tree preservation order at the Apple Box, Rushbrook Road, Stratford-on-Avon, and the presenting officer is Leslie Adams. Good evening, Leslie. Thank you. And we're looking forward to your, when you get online, looking forward to your presentation.
Apologies. New tree preservation order at the Apple Box, Rushbrook Road in Stratford-on-Avon, and you can see the site denoted by the black dot. We received a request to consider a TPO at the site, and an assessment was undertaken back in March, April time under the guidance for the tree evaluation method for preservation orders, and the tree met the criteria for that. Well, that was that one. Apologies. This gives you a better idea of the tree, its location. The Apple Box is shown by the blue square. It's a recently completed new build, very similar to the adjacent property to the northeast side there, and the tree is in the rear garden of what is a relatively small garden, and it's a substantial oak tree, fairly visible from sort of glimpses from Banbury Road, but more visible from both Rushbrook and Hunts Road. It's visible over the tops of the houses and from the highway, which is really why it was considered that it met the criteria to be protected by TPO. It's quite a large tree, so there were concerns that there might be moves for uncontrolled pruning. And TPOs can allow interested parties to make applications, and the council can advise or allow appropriate pruning work. So the concern was really to do with uncontrolled pruning, possibly pruning to boundaries, that sort of thing. Hence the service of the order. This is a photo of the tree from the garden of 73 Hunts Road. The Apple Box is the property just on the right side there. That's the new property. You can see that it's a substantial oak tree. It's been subject to crown lifting works previously to reduce some of the overhang over the adjacent properties. There's another picture from the garden of 73, just to give you an idea of where considering the objection to the order here and as to whether to confirm the order as served or not, or to revise the order. So this gives you an idea of perhaps the impact of the tree on that garden, but it does lie to the northeast of this property. There is a change in level between the garden in which the tree is growing at the apple box and number 73 of about 400 mil. Then slightly raised elevation, and as I say, the canopy of the tree's been lifted previously as well. There were some concerns about whether the tree had been managed or maintained over the years, and we've received confirmation that the current owner of the tree has, their family have been custodians of the tree for over 40 years, and it has been periodically maintained. So the options are to confirm the order as served, to modify it, or to not confirm the order. My recommendation is to confirm as served.
Thank you, Leslie. We have no speakers on this matter. Any questions for the case officer? Yes, Councillor Parry.
Thank you and good evening, Leslie. Can you just give us an indication of its approximate age and therefore how long it's been there?
It's very difficult to age trees, you know, because there are so many variables, but probably I would say it's around about 100 years old. That would be my estimate.
Thank you for that. Further questions, Councillor Badgham.
Yeah, thank you. So if we were minded to confirm the TPO, which means that the neighbour would then have to apply for planning permission to prune, what is the time scale for them sort of putting that application in and it being approved, and who would actually monitor those works?
Yeah, anybody can make a TPO application. So a neighbour, an interested party, an agent, you know, tree surgeon, and we would consider the proposals on their own merits. So you know, even if you don't own the tree, you can apply to have work to prune branches that maybe overhang an adjacent garden or a boundary, and that would be assessed on its merits in the context of whether it's, you know, biologically okay for the tree. Is it harmful? Is there significant harm in terms of public amenity? You know, will it impact on whether you can still see the tree from those public viewpoints? The timescale for TPO applications is we have to turn those round on an 8-week. It's an 8-week. There's a period of consultation, but it's generally 8 weeks between validation and decision maximum.
Thank you, Leslie. And just to follow up on that, just a little bit point of clarification. Does a TPO application, is it required to be accompanied by an arboricultural report or not?
It really depends on the scale of the work and which boxes are ticked on the application form. If the applicant is citing health and safety as a reason for the works, you know, they feel there's decay present or an imminent threat to health and safety, then that has to be supported by an independent arboricultural report. If it's just general maintenance, you know, work in compliance with the British Standard for Tree Work, you know, which sort of talks about sizes of pruning wounds and that sort of thing. So, you know, what's biologically acceptable for the tree, so it wouldn't cause significant harm. That doesn't necessarily have to be supported by an independent report. And again, you know, things like subsidence, that has to be any suggestion or implication in subsidence has to be supported by quite a raft of evidence.
Right, thank you for that. A little bit of extra training on TPOs. Any further questions? In which case, who would like to kick off with the discussion? Councillor Harvey, thank you.
Propose confirm.
Thank you. Anybody like to second? Oh, Councillor Harding.
Clear case of public benefit.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Councillor Harvey, just coming back to your proposal, can you confirm that you are proposing that the order is confirmed as made?
Confirmed as made.
Thank you. Seconded. Thank you. On that basis, we have a proposal and a seconder to confirm the order as made, which is the recommendation of the officer. Could I have a show of cards in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. In which case, Council resolve to confirm the order as made in accordance with the recommendations of the officer on TPO 201138 at the Applebox, Rushbrook Road. Thank you all. Right, we're moving on to the final item. There is 20 minutes to go. So at this point, I say 20 minutes to go. That's 20 minutes before the 3-hour deadline. So I need to ask you all if you're happy for us to continue just beyond the 3-hour deadline to make sure that we can consider this application. A quick show of hands for staying back after school. Thank you. We'll carry on, in which case, so this item is application 2501825, if you will. It's Stratford-on-Avon District Council and its replacement, alterations, and improvements to the existing windows with some other stuff, which I think Stuart's going to go through in a minute. Stuart, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So the proposal before members is full application for replacement, alterations and improvements to existing windows with additional new Breeze Salil at Elizabeth House. So obviously we've got the building located here along Church Street. So we've got the principal elevation fronting Church Street. So just to make it clear that the proposal is to just repair and decorate the existing windows on this front elevation. No windows are to be replaced. And then we've just go on to some existing and proposed illustrations showing the replacement of windows and inclusion of blank infill aluminium cladding, which you can just kind of see here. And then we've got some more existing and proposed illustrations. So you've got the existing windows here, and you've got proposed here with the aluminium infill cladding. And then we've got some more proposed illustrations. And then we've just got some images of the existing windows as they are at Elizabeth House. And then again, so this is the rear elevation now, so you can see the existing windows as they are. And then in summary, it's recommended that the application to repair, alter and improve the existing windows is considered to conform to the relevant policies of the core strategy, and it's recommended that the application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. We have no speakers on this item. Are there any questions for the case officer, please? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chairman. Page 48, comments from the Town Council. They make no representation subject to a listed building consent application being submitted. What's the relevance of that?
So a listed building consent application is not required as the building is not listed. It is within the Stratford-on-Avon conservation area, but it's not a listed building. So a listed building consent application doesn't need to be submitted.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. That is a good question because there will be people potentially watching this, and of course I think a number of people in town might consider that the frontage of this building is in fact listed, but it isn't, and the windows are only being repaired on the front in any case, aren't they? Okay, that's good. Any further questions? In which case we can move on to the discussion. Who would like to start or make a proposal? Councillor Parker, did I see that was you?
You saw nothing from me. I'm hoping.
Oh, still downstairs.
twitch of an eyebrow.
Yes. No, but I am hoping that a senior member of the party who who have been running the council might be able to speak on this matter. The administration. Thank you for helping with my words.
Okay, so that's Councillor Harding.
I'll do it. There's a clear case of public benefit here, so I'd like to propose we accept the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. I'll take that as a proposal. Yes, and a seconder, Councillor Ballinger.
Can I second, please, the officer's recommendation to grant?
Yes, you can. Councillor Harding, just to be clear, that's a proposal to grant 25.01825 FUL in accordance with the recommendation of the officers and subject to the conditions that are noted in the report, of which there are 5. Can you confirm that? Yes, and Councillor Ballinger, could you confirm that you're seconding that proposal?
Yes.
Good. So we've got a proposer and a seconder to grant 25.01825 FUL in accordance with the recommendation and the conditions attached. So show of cards in favour of that proposal, please.
That's
unanimous.
unanimous.
Thank you. Committee resolves in which case to grant 25.01825 FUL at the District Council offices for the repairs and alterations to the windows. Thank you, everybody. Which takes us nicely on to the last item on the agenda. Urgent business.
No urgent business, Chair.
You sure? You're sure? Okay. So I'll bring the meeting to a close. If I could just hold you back for 1 second after we go offline, if you don't mind. Thank you. In which case, thank you very much for your contributions.